Hello friends, welcome back. I am hard at work on a bunch of projects in honour of the most wonderful time of the year. Halloween. What else did you think it could be? But I'm not ready to show you any of them yet. I've also recently overhauled my workroom, so I figured this time, why don't we take a look around and I'll talk you through some of the systems I have that make my life easier. When you first enter the workroom, you're immediately faced with my fabric stash, which as well as being really lovely to look at, helps me a lot. I tend to forget about things I can't see, and this way that's never happening again. Fabric storage is one of those things that everyone struggles with, and I definitely don't think my version is perfect, but this is what works best for me. Previously, I had all my fabric in see-through plastic boxes, and while in theory this had some benefits, I actually found it had far more downsides. The boxes were incredibly bulky and took up a lot of space. I found that instead of protecting the fabric, the boxes didn't allow air to circulate, and thus some things ended up really smelling funky. And as previously mentioned, I just forgot what was there. I did consider putting these on boards, but actually I find the rolls work really well for preventing too many creases. Thank you, Marie Kondo. But I rarely have really big pieces of fabric. 5 meters is usually about the max for what I have in stash, unless it's a kimono silk. I also like the rolls because I can immediately see whether I have a lot of a fabric or not very much. I've got a bit of a system, silk, wool, cottons, synthetics, but I'm not super rigorous about it for the bigger stuff because it's got enough of a footprint, mostly for things like this. Odd meters of white cotton, where I'll know I want a bit of cotton for a lining or a facing, but I'm not actually looking for a specific fabric. This is the Worktable, which is actually 2 IKEA worktops on top of 5 Billy bookcases. I don't necessarily recommend this, not because it's not good. It's amazing, I love it, but because if you were any shorter than me, this Worktable would be too high. As it is, I can work on this without bending over basically at all. In fact, in order to have my arms on the table, I need to be stood up straight. This is really important for me because I have back problems. The best advice I can give is that as much as possible, furniture only comes in so many sizes, your Worktable hits somewhere between your waist and your solar plexus, depending on what you find comfortable. Don't worry about this isn't important, everything's fine. It's a really simple addition to your workroom, but I cannot overstate how much of a difference this thread rack has made. I assumed people just had them for like aesthetic, but no. I can just look and immediately see if I have the right kind of thread or not. It even takes up less space than the tin I used to use. Let's talk desks. My computer desk has a lot of built-in storage, so I tend to use the hidden stuff and non-aesthetic things like filming accessories and computer equipment and art supplies that I'm going to go specifically looking for if I need them. And the visible space I use for objects that I like looking at. My sewing desk is a more expensive adjustable number because again, for my back, I want the sewing machine up as high as it can go. These 2 desks face each other, so I can slide my chair back and forth between the 2. Obviously, the chair is also adjustable, so I can always be at the correct height for whichever desk I'm at. My goal is eventually to have the sewing table completely clear apart from the sewing machine. So while I'm super happy with this pegboard, I think I could use a second one. With the pegboard, I've gone through a couple of different iterations, and I think I'm probably still not done. But that's the great thing about pegboards. You can improvise, revise, improve, change stuff up as your workflow evolves. And for particularly weird bits and pieces, we have a 3D printer. Custom pegboard hardware is a pretty hot topic in this house. I sound so exciting as a human being, god damn. This is where all my trims and things live. And this is both overflowing and not very neat. This I think needs some work, or at the very least, a tidy. Also, I need to use some beads. I have so many beads. It also means I can have the script open on the computer and sit in front of my far more aesthetic sewing desk with the camera in the middle. That's how I do long talky videos without an auto cue. This is kind of an accessory rather than a piece of furniture, but also it's literally changed my life. I keep all my hand sewing stuff on this tray. A bunch of the stuff is here permanently, this little pair of scissors, my pins, a tape measure, beeswax, magnetic thing for my needles, plus whatever threads or extra tools I happen to be using at the time. Then this tray travels around with me wherever I happen to be working. This desk, or this desk, downstairs on the sofa, outside in the garden. It's much easier than trying to figure out what I need to take with me each time, and means that I can keep moving my work around and not get bored. My pattern storage is two-part. When I get a new pattern, I separate the envelope from the tissue and instructions and other, internals. The internals go into a Ziploc bag, which I then label with the pattern company, size, a brief description, date if I've got one, and most importantly, the pattern number. Then those Ziploc bags are organized in ascending numerical order, mostly in the filing cabinet. There's overflow now, so I should figure that out. A fair few of these I've traced out extras and adjustments and new pattern pieces, and they can all go in the same Ziploc bag. The pattern envelope with the pretty picture goes into a folder, and I tend to organize these by themes. So one's for vintage patterns, one's for modern patterns. This big boy is costumes. I have a bias. So my modern and vintage patterns are kind of organized by what they are: tops, dresses, coats. And my costume patterns are organized by general theme: historical, steampunk, fantasy gowns, menswear. This gives me both a catalogue that I can browse through for inspiration and the ability to look up specifics and compare similar patterns very easily, again without anything being hidden or forgotten. I'm still figuring out what I'm going to do with self-drafted patterns. I think what I'm going with is I'm going to print out a picture of the finished garment, probably just give it a number because the numbers don't actually matter, and then file in the folder or filing cabinet as per usual. The point is, the system will work for self-drafted patterns, and anything that isn't a regular commercial pattern just needs a little bit of finessing. I was going back and forth on what I wanted for this space, and I'm really glad I settled on this KALLAX unit. Because all the space is the same size and shape, I can be really flexible with them. And it's plenty deep enough to shove even huge ball gowns into these spaces. Mostly I'm using this space for finished projects, but some of it is also dedicated to in-progress projects or things that need repairs and alterations. Basically so that I can, say it with me kids, see at a glance what I have and what still needs doing. Additionally, there's a host of accessories, both from IKEA themselves, who will do you boxes that exactly fit, shelves that go inside, doors for the front that can also be pegboards, and also from other companies, because this is such a universal format, it can be specifically catered for. I found a great company that laser cuts a whole bunch of storage solutions out of MDF specifically to fit into KALLAX units, including sewing supply specific ones like bobbin holders or thread spool racks. If I decide how to shake up how I'm using this space in future, it'll be really easy. Leftover fabric scraps are called cabbage, and it's really easy to end up with a frankly unsettling quantity of it. Generally, I advocate throwing out as much of this as you can. Seriously, decide how much space you're going to let this rubbish have in your life and stick to it. You will always generate more. Either you need to use it up or you need to get it out of your life in a different way. Having said that, I am currently doing a lot of patchwork, so I've saved a lot more scraps than I usually would specifically for this purpose. It's worked out best for me to sort these into specific projects because I have a couple of specific projects in mind, and then for the general stuff into colour schemes. And I'm working on sorting out transparent containers for these so I can, you guessed it, see what I have at a glance and not forget about it. Is this getting repetitive? The final tip I have, yeah, we're back to the murder board. Okay, so this is for a tabletop role-playing game I'm involved in that I am heroically over-invested in. I actually plan to do a video about making this because I want to do something really silly and light-hearted after the transphobia in costuming video, which was pretty heavy going. But then that video did much better than I was expecting it to, and I decided it was too silly and light-hearted. So let me know if you want a video about making a murder board. Anyway, the point is that this is actually temporary. Yarn strips are a very strong but removable adhesive, and they come with a bunch of options: hooks, sticky pads, Velcro, which is what I've actually used for these guys, so I can rearrange the cork boards if I want to. What this means is you can turn pretty much any wall into vertical storage space that is temporary and removable, usually without damaging the paint. Your mileage may vary. Double check those ones. But it adds an extra dimension to your storage, either frivolously, like I have for pictures, decorations, this thing, or very seriously to hold tools and supplies that you want accessible, but not in the way. I hope you've enjoyed this video and that it's given you some ideas. Feel free to comment down below if you've got any genius solutions I haven't thought of yet. I'm still trying to figure out a good way of storing my yarn. My next video is going to be a little earlier than usual because it's spooky season. You can expect more frequent programming during the month of October as I deep dive the world of vintage fancy dress costume patterns, with a couple of other bits and bobs thrown in. Don't forget to subscribe if you'd like to hang around for those. It's going to be so much fun. And in general, like, comment, subscribe, do all the things that make the YouTube gods happy. Somebody was upset that I referred to an algorithm as a god, but I stand by what I said. With that in mind, down in the description box you'll find a link to my Ko-fi page where you can donate to support this channel. Anyone who donates £10 or more will get their name in an October video as a thank you. My current goal is for a series of videos about planning, assembling and making costume for outdoor LARP games, which I'm planning to start in about November, and I think it's going to be really fun whether or not you're a LARPer. Thanks so much for sticking around until the end, dream big, and I'll see you next time.